Hello YouTube. I wanted to talk to you real quick about something I feel is very urgent and very important for those of us in chronic pain to do that have been following the health benefits of this plant, the Virosa plant, also known as wild lettuce. Well, all the videos that I've seen have really involved just the plant identification and foraging the plant. But what happens to the plant when we're not there? Could it be sprayed with chemicals? Will it even still be in the same place? When you want to go gather it repeatedly, will it be cut down? I may need more than I can actually find. And when I'm in pain or when I'm not breathing well, I don't want to go foraging. So I'm thinking that, like I did this year, we really need to work on cultivating the plant for our individual use. Now, there's no literature out there how to grow this plant, how to start the seed, how to transplant the new plants, that kind of thing that you find with other plants. So what we need to do right now in the fall, while the seed are still out there on plants, is to gather those seed and either by sowing right now in a spot where you want it to grow, or by waiting until spring when it's its usual time to start sprouting and growing, that you could sow it or plant it in a pot. Then I would say you need to go out and do that if this is your interest, to have a steady supply of the leaves so that you can use medicinally. So go out and gather those seed. Then when you have a plant that starts growing, you and I and everyone out there that's growing this plant need to make notes on how this plant grows. We need to, if you can, make notes on how long it takes to germinate the seed. You know, when you go to get any seed packet, it says how many days till germination. Well, we don't know that with this plant. When the plants start sprouting up to be large enough to transplant, which I did this year, so I can tell you this much, that transplanting a plant that is 4 to 5 inches tall or more, all of those plants took, every single one of them. That's why I had so many. And it is a very hardy plant, but we need to know how to make the differences between our own geographic areas. Now, I'm here in the Middle Tennessee area, which would be very different than growing it in Georgia, which would be very different than growing it in the north, Vermont, Maine, in that area, or out west in Wyoming. Those things are very different aspects, and we need to be cataloging that and making that known. If we want it to grow hardy, and it won't take much to grow it hardy, we've seen that, we want our plants to thrive. So instead of treating it like it grows wild and just letting it grow on wasteland, we will enrich the soil. The soil where my largest plant grew, that was 11 feet tall, it had the largest stalk, it produced the most leaves and the most sprouts, was planted in full sun, where I had dumped 10 pounds of coffee grounds several years ago. So I can at least make that notation on the plant, and I will be using that area again. Now my plants in the shade, where I'm standing right now, see that leaf right there? there are leaves still growing on that plant. So that extends the harvesting season. Even though the plants are puny in size, they only got up to be about 6 feet tall. They didn't have a lot of leaves on them, even though I tried to encourage sprouting on them. The sprouts were even spindly. They weren't large and thick like they were on that large plant. So I'm going to have an area that's actually covered by sun and shade. This area here is where I'm going to be growing the plants. This is the heavy shade, this is the full sun, and this is a transition zone in between. And except for where the daylilies are, I'm still considering moving them. But I'm going to grow the plants in this whole entire area. And I do know that the plant is easy to transplant. That's where I got all of my plants from this year. So even if you can still find plants to pull up or dig up next year, you can use that option. But I want this plant to get as close to you as you can, and for it to be in a controlled environment so that you know it's a healthy plant, so that you know that nothing has contaminated it, and so that you can encourage this extra leaf grow that I did this year. We know that pulling the leaves encourages sprouts. So those are some things we found out this year. But we still don't know how long it takes to germinate from seed. Any seed packet gives you instructions on how many days it takes for a seed to germinate. Well, in wild plants, we don't know that. So this is something you can be documenting. We don't know where the growing zone transitions are either for the hardiness of the plant. Now, we know it grows wild everywhere, but where does it thrive, and how can you replicate those conditions to make it thrive? For instance, okay, banana plants grow in the tropic jungles, but there is a house that I pass every day in the summer, and I've seen it for the course of 30 years of my life, that grows a banana tree. And it's a very large banana tree. And it is on the southwest corner of their house. We do have enough humidity here in Tennessee to sustain it. And they yield bananas off of it here in Middle Tennessee. So if you can replicate the growing conditions, the optimum growing conditions, then you can get more yield from your plants. So these are some things I wanted you to think about, because I really want you to start cultivating this plant. Bring it into your yard. I want you to go out now while it's fall and gather those seed and sow them in the spring in a place where you can start watching the growth. Also be on the lookout for small plants that you can transplant, and I will do videos on that when those start coming up. So I just wanted to touch on a few of these points because I don't want us to depend on foraging. Living with chronic pain, chronic breathing problems, this plant actually covers a lot of different diseases. I'm going to try to put the list of things that it treats in the description, but it's so lengthy I don't know if it will fit into all those 1,000 characters that I'm allowed, just the 1,000. But I am going to try to do that today when I post this video. So those are some things I wanted you to think about. Bring this plant to you so that you don't have to go out looking for it, so that you can have a better quality of life and be free from pain.